All right. A couple of passages here as we get started tonight that reinforce the importance of heart. So from Proverbs 4:23, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. In other words, from the heart comes really everything about life. And so that's important for us to guard our hearts. This is the core of who we are. So this is God saying this is important. If you're going to understand life, you've got to understand heart. Matthew 15. Jesus is talking in a very, I'm sure, almost comical conversation with the disciples. Look at it. He says, do you not yet understand that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and is eliminated? I'm sure for some guys sitting around a campfire, that was funny, you know? They're like, well, duh, we know what that means. And Jesus goes on and says, but those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and they defile a man. So the disciples would have known that what goes out of a man is unclean. And in the culture of the day, it was understood that the left hand was used for those bathroom times, and it was considered the unclean hand. And so for a man to greet another man or woman and to offer his left hand was incredibly offensive. You offered your right hand. That was the hand of honor. So Jesus is talking here about offense and what is offensive, and he says the things that come out of the mouth come from the heart, and they are actually what defile a man. It's not what goes out of him, it's what comes out of him in his mouth. Verse 19, for out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands does not defile a man. Jesus puts the record straight here. He drives home this point about the heart. And then from John 7, actually a tie-in here to our Sunday morning series, Jesus said, he who believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. But this he spoke concerning the Spirit, whom those believing in him would receive, for the Holy Spirit was not yet given because Jesus was not yet glorified. So the heart has always been important to God, and it's important in this process of influencing other people. So tonight we're going to talk about how to hear other people's hearts, because I'm sure you've had the experience of being misunderstood, where you said something and someone heard what you said and they interpreted it a certain way. And when you found out, you said, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, that ever happen to anybody? Hello, yeah, everybody. And you say, well, what I intended or what I meant was this. Your heart said one thing, but your words said something else. And I'm sure you've had the experience, my goodness, as well, of maybe with someone else, they're the ones who have spoken to you, and you misunderstood them completely. You misunderstood their heart. And if you want to influence your children, you want to influence a spouse, you want to make a difference, you have to know how to hear heart and speak heart. And that's a different language. It may be one that you haven't had a lot of training in, maybe one you haven't really honed in on to try to understand more than just what the person's saying with their words, more than just what they're doing with their actions, but all the way down to listening to their heart and what they are really saying, what they're really communicating, what they're really needing. So we're going to talk about how we do that tonight. Let me ask you this first. In what relationship for you would that be most valuable right now? Is if you could really hear heart. Anybody? Okay. And remind us again how old she is?
She just turned 11.
There you go. You want to be able to hear heart. Anybody else?
God is truly working in our family, and my sister-in-law is like revival that's in our family.
Nice.
And last night, my daughter's asking to go live with a 21-year-old in Ohio.
Mm.
So I get on the phone with Daddy, and then through all of that, she's crying. I'm like, this is the first time that like real.
Mm.
This is real stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
she said some stuff about me, and I was like, shoot, I didn't know that. You know, I knew I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't know, you know, and I thought, oh, this is really amazing.
Wow. That's
But
good.
it's true, because she'll say something, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's such a tone. She's like, no, Mom, I didn't mean that way. That's
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm the same.
That's good. All right. Anybody else? What's that relationship you need to be able to hear heart with?
My wife and kids.
Yeah. 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 It's hard sometimes when the words coming out are so loud or they have a lot of emotion with them. And it's easy to hear them or interpret them at least how we think they mean them, but we actually can miss what's going on in a heart. Someone can truly be fearful and filled with uncertainty, but it come out as anger. And if you misinterpret, you'll interpret that reaction and miss the real need that's happening. Someone can be crying out for companionship, for a real sense of closeness, but it comes out as anger or kind of almost violent reactive anger, but they're crying out for something that they need deep inside. So, my goodness, our fan is really causing some havoc here. You have to be able to, you have to be able to hear heart in order to know how to respond to that. So let's look at some things, and feel free to inject in the conversation tonight and make some application along the way here. The first point we want to look at tonight is this. Influential leaders learn to fill their heart longings with God Himself. So if you want to hear heart from someone else, then you have to know how to have your own heart filled first with God. Because see, if you get into a situation, a relationship, and your heart is empty and crying out and desperate, then you're going to interpret everything that comes in based on your emptiness instead of your fullness. You might be the one who's in need of companionship and closeness and acceptance, and someone else is trying to talk to you, and you're going to interpret everything through that lens. Whatever your heart is in that moment, you're going to interpret it that way. And if your heart's not full, you'll misinterpret. So you have to get your heart full from the one, only one who can do that. Now it gets tempting in a marriage situation because the person's so close, so available, so much knows you that you want to look to them to fill all your needs. And when they don't, you get mad, right? Anybody relate? Every one of us can relate to that. But here's the deal. Your spouse was never designed to be able to fulfill all your needs. That's a big truth that's important for us to know. It's great when they do, but if that's what you're looking for, longing for, hoping for, I can't promise you success out of that. I can promise you some disappointment and some frustration because that'll happen. But you have to get to the place where you find your fulfillment in what God does for you alone. If they do, great. If they don't, you go on anyway. So that's why we start here tonight. Same with parenting. If you have issues from maybe disappointments from your own parents where they didn't meet your needs, and you have these hurts from your past, and you're still dealing with those, that will affect how you parent. You will be a half-lit fuse already the moment they come in with their frustrations or their disappointments or their disobedience. You'll go off on them and you'll think, wow, why did I do that? It could be that part of it is because you've got unresolved hurts in your heart that are causing you to erupt on them. So here first, if you want to influence and hear someone else's heart, you've got to get your own heart full first. Look at the verse here on this one, Psalm 16. This is David, who we know about David's successes, but we know about David's heartaches as well from Scripture. And he says, "O Lord, you are the portion of my inheritance and my cup. You're the one that fills me up. You're the one that I lean to. Not my victories, Not my role as a king, not my possessions and pleasures. You alone, God. In the dark night, you are the one that I turn to. In my own disappointments, you're the one I turn to. So, influential leaders, they resist the temptation to look for others to fill their cup. They stop blaming others for what they don't or didn't get or couldn't get from them. You have to get to the place where you stop blaming your spouse, your kids, your parents, your boss, your whoever for not giving you everything you need. That's just an indicator you've been looking to them to give you what you need. So you have to cut off the temptation to look to them, stop blaming them, and then you have to get to this place where you know how to have your heart filled with God Himself. Man, all right, let me just stop for just a moment and hear some comments, because this point alone is tough to process. You don't just read these and say, okay, I'll do that. This is weighty stuff right here. Let me hear some of your thoughts. What are you thinking?
Well, what you said about parenting, is very true, because I was a terrible parent, to be honest about it, because I had so many of those hurts from my childhood. And so, like you said, a lot of times I would take it out on my kids and not even realize why.
Yeah.
I mean, after years, I finally learned I had PTSD from my childhood, but it came out as anger and just took it out on my kids.
Yeah, it's true. It happens.
And I've come to the point now where I realize that happiness doesn't come from things, it comes from, like you said, from within. So learning who you are and what you are. Yeah. As much as Heather and I love each other, we have had to consciously make the choice that for each other, that our happiness doesn't come necessarily from the other person, my ultimate happiness. Because if it did, then we're only going to have some good days when we're both doing good. And the chance of you and your spouse always having good days together is rare, right? I mean, just realistically. And so she's had to learn, and I'm learning, we're both learning together, that if she's not having a good day, I keep loving. If she's not able to give me what I need, I keep loving. That doesn't change anything because she's at a spot or I'm at a spot. We just keep loving one another in the process. And it has to come from a place where I get my heart full from God and what He does for me alone. So this is the first spot. If you want to be able to read someone else's heart, you got to be at a place where your heart's full to begin with. If you're empty, if you're hurt, if you've got things way deep in your past that are painful and hurtful that you haven't worked through, if your heart's in a bad spot, you're going to have a hard time hearing other people's heart because yours is covered over. It's numb. It's calloused. And that all has to go before you can feel and hear someone else's heart. Any other comments, thoughts before we move on? All right, let's go on number 2. Influential leaders are able to see others from a position of a filled heart. This is kind of next step in this process here. In Mark chapter 6, it says that, "And going out, Jesus saw a large crowd, and He was moved with compassion toward them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and He began to teach them many things." I love this verse. So Jesus goes out. He obviously sees a very large crowd, and they're not all saying, teach us, we want to know. No, they're grumbling, they're complaining, they're bitter, they're distracted, they're uninterested. And in that moment, it doesn't say that Jesus said, "Oh, I'm so irritated at those losers. Oh, they won't listen to me. Wow. They're probably going to end up crucifying me anyway. Why would I want to do this stuff?" It doesn't say that. Knowing all of that, Jesus was instead moved with compassion. Wow. Knowing what was going to happen, knowing they couldn't give Him anything,
He was moved with compassion. How was he able to do that? How are you able to look at a crowd who's going to turn against you and be moved with compassion for them? How do you do that? As the only place it could have come from. He had to have gotten that from his Father. He had to have known, all right, God, out of what you have done for me, out of how much you love me, I want them to know that. I'm desperate for them to know that. So his heart full first enables him to love them. There's a point later, he gets over in the story of Jesus. It's the night before his crucifixion. He's praying, and he says, Father, I want them to know what you and I know. I want them to be one like we are one. And that's that same concept. I want those that I know in my life, I want them to experience, God, what you've done for me. That's where influence comes from. If I'm looking at the people around me as my lifelines, you know, if I have expectations upon Heather and Brianna, my kids, Holly, Hunter, Taylor, Truett, and then the grandkids, and then all their spouses. If I have all these expectations about what they ought to be doing for me, if I'm all the time thinking about, well, they better come say something to me. They better get over here and hug me. They better come tell me how great I am. If I'm just going down that line every day, what's going to happen? I'll be frustrated, disappointed, angry at them all the time. I'm not going to have any influence in their life because I'm a black hole looking to be filled all the time. You have to get to the place where that's inverted. It's not all about me. It's about me pouring out what God has done in my life already. This is where you start. You can't hear if your heart is calloused. So, when you see others from a position of a filled heart, you're free to see what others need instead of what others can give. You're able to listen past the words and actions of others, and you're able to resist taking things personally and as an attack. Ooh. That's tough alone, that last one right there. Because you get into a situation, you're talking to someone, maybe there's some emotion involved, maybe it's a conflict. It's so easy in that moment to take it personally and to get hurt by it. That's the moment where you have to say, all right, I need to back up a minute. This is not about me. And even if they are hurting, I can take it. I'll take it. Because I want to help them. I want to be able to influence them. And I'm not going to let this moment be characterized by me getting my feelings hurt. Yeah? So, scale of 1 to 10, how easy is that for you to do? It's tough. It's tough. It's so easy just to listen to the words and the emotion in the moment and take it all in.
I can do that like once. And then maybe twice. And then it's like over and over again. That's when I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, it's true.
I listened and I know this wasn't about me, but now I'm taking it personally.
Yeah, it's true. It's hard. Yeah. When it happens multiple times especially, it gets very difficult to do that. But each of those moments, for me, what I've had to come to is to keep reminding myself,
Right.
if they are acting this way, whatever way that is they're acting, there must be something going on.
And having somebody else admit too also is important, I think. Like
Yes.
your spouse or somebody who,
Yes.
in a loving way, you can go to and be like, oh, I'm going to tell you this person's driving me nuts. And I know
Exactly.
it's not about me, but
Right.
That's important.
You're
But
right.
that's important for me. I need to get it out, and then now I'm not going to take it out on them.
True. Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's true. Heather and I will do that for one another. And then I've had people that I've talked with before, and they said, I'm so angry at this person. And I was like, okay, well, look, the next time you want to just vent, call me and
Right.
don't do
Don't
that
call
to
them.
them.
Yeah.
Don't do that, because that's going to make the situation worse. So getting to that place where you learn to not take things personally is essential. And when you do take it personally, it has to be one of those indicators of, all right, here I go again. This is just revealing that I've got an empty cup here instead of a filled cup. Hurt feelings is an indicator often of an empty cup instead of a filled cup. So I have to say, God, fill my cup so that I can pour out and not go around as the cup looking for everybody to fill my ego needs, my acceptance needs, my whatever it is. Because that hurts relationships, going around with empty cup versus going around with filled cups that I pour out. Thoughts, questions, comments? Yes.
Spoke directly to me with my mother-in-law situation. Just the literal personal attacks over and over again. And, you open yourself back up to try to remedy the situation and just get attacked again over and over. And then I'm venting to him, and he's like, "Oh, is it really that bad?" I'm like, "Yes, it really is."
Yeah.
You know, and just because they were here this weekend, it's like when you're saying Jesus looked out and they were going to crucify him, but he still had compassion for him. Like,
Right.
I know she's going to crucify me again, but I should still love her and have compassion. And I know she's probably going through some things herself that
Exactly.
making her lash out that way
Yep.
for the past 8 years. But
Yeah, no, it's true. You never know what's going on in someone else's life. You just don't ever know. And sometimes you get a chance to get a glimpse into what's going on, and sometimes you don't. I think we might be shocked if we really knew what was going on inside someone else. And if that's happening, it's often an indicator that their cup is not just low, but it is empty, and it's been empty a long time. It's got spider webs in it, and they don't even know. Yeah, they don't even know what it's like to have a drop in the cup, much less it be full. And so, but that takes a shift in our thinking. You have to just keep reminding yourself of these truths, because you're going to get into the situation, and if you've handled it a certain way over a period of time, you're going to get back into it, and you're going to feel that emotion. You just want to lash out again because that's what you did before. But that's where you have to remind yourself, look, this is not about me. I don't have to have them fill my cup. My cup is filled from somewhere else. And I can be kind to them. I can be patient with them. And I can respond in the way I need to for their sake. Okay, let's go on. Number 3, influential leaders are growing experts in matters of the heart. And those 2 words are important, growing experts. It didn't say you're already an expert, but a growing expert in matters of the heart. We are learning to listen to people's hearts. We're learning to listen past the words, past the reaction, past what's going on, to see what's really happening. The New Testament drives home the importance of heart. Romans 10. For with the heart one believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth one confesses unto salvation. Those are big New King James terms here that says this. When someone becomes a follower of Jesus, it's not because they say, okay, I'm going to start doing some Christian things. It starts in their heart. With the heart one believes. It didn't say with their intellect, with their great knowledge base. It says with the heart one believes, and then the mouth confesses it. The heart is essential. So we have to become experts at listening to heart, at listening to your kids' heart, of listening to your spouse's heart, of listening to friends' hearts. That's why communicating through text messages can be so challenging sometimes. Hello? Yeah? Yeah. Or emails. Yeah, that's why we've kind of made it a goal in our family, and I tell our church staff this. We use text and emails for communicating good news. If you got something else you want to say it to someone's face. Don't send, this is at least our policy, don't use an email to send a complaint or text. Don't use email or text to tell somebody something that's a point of correction or criticism. That always has to be done face to face, because there's so much involved in that moment that gets lost when you can't see the face and hear the heart. And a text, even with emojis, doesn't always do it. They help. Some emojis help.
Especially my voice text.
Well, yeah.
Just say.
Yeah. So being able to hear heart is crucial. And really, when you get good at it, you get where you're just reading heart all the time. In a conversation, you're looking at someone's eyes, you're reading body language, you're reading posture, you're listening tone of voice, you're putting all of that together and you're listening for their heart. Where are they? You're listening past what looks like anger and you're hearing, what is their heart? Is the real issue here that they're afraid? Is the real issue here that they've been hurt? Is the real issue here that I have done something to cause them to not trust me in the past? Is the real issue here that they are terrified of a next step in their life? Is the real issue here something that happened to them a long time ago that causes them to have some anxiety today? That we have to become experts at, listening to someone's heart and knowing what they're communicating. So let's look at some points here with this. That means first, listening in our own heart to the leading and speaking of God's heart. This is a tie-in back to Sunday morning. If you want to listen to someone else's heart, you've got to become good at listening to God's heart in you first. The Spirit of God, when He's speaking to you, that's what He's doing. He speaks heart. When you learn to listen to His heart, then you can learn to hear other people's hearts. They are able also to sense the hurts that others have faced. Anybody ever watch the show Lie to Me? It was on TV for a while. No Lie to Me fans? Wow, it's been a while. Okay. I don't even know if you can watch it anymore now, but it was...
Is it black and white?
No, it was a brilliant show where this guy was an expert at reading facial expressions. And so they'd have these court cases and these crimes that would happen, and they would, he would somehow interact with the people, and they would video, their facial expressions. They'd go back and his deal was that there were micro expressions, that you could read these micro expressions in people's faces that really reveal whether what they were saying was honest or not, or if they were masking something. It was fun from that perspective. It's similar to this idea here of watching someone's facial expressions and their heart. And I know you have to know this feeling right here. When you talk with somebody, maybe for the first time, and you get this sense, something's not right here. Have you ever had that? Where you just feel like, I don't know if I can trust this person. They seem a little sketchy, little not on the up and up. That is the beginning of learning how to hear heart, because that's a perceptive skill. And you can't always identify it. You can't say, there's something about this that doesn't feel right, and here's the reason why. Click, click, just list them off. You don't know it, but you just know something's not right here. Or you walk in a situation and you say, okay, my wife's had a bad day today. I can sense this, right? Hopefully. If you're good husbands, that should be what's happening. You sense some of that, and same for wives. So, but it's a skill you have to develop, and you have to learn to sense hurt. And hurt doesn't always sound like tears. Hurt sometimes sounds like anger. Hurt sometimes sounds like anxiety. Hurt sometimes sounds like overdoing it with work, some kind of substance. Those are all masks for the real issue, the heart where there's a hurt. So you have to listen for that. You have to listen for the tone of voice. You have to listen for the heart and what's going on there. The next piece is that they know the destructiveness of an unhealthy heart. So here are the things that we know from Scripture are unhealthy. When there's fear and anxiety in someone's heart, when there's hurt and rejection, when there's stubbornness and resistance, when there's insecurity and withdrawal, anger and bitterness, selfishness and arrogance. Those are all unhealthy heart issues. And so this becomes what you watch for. This becomes what you listen for. This becomes what you sense. You don't do it so you can condemn them. You do it so you can understand them. And you listen for tone. You listen for or look for eye contact, body language, what they talk about, all of that. And you look for these. Is there something they're saying that's really revealing that they're dealing with some insecurities and withdrawal? Is what they're saying and communicating really communicating more selfishness and arrogance. Now you're starting to hear heart beyond words, beyond the actions, beyond even body language. You're hearing heart. Then you have to know the strength that comes from a heart that's free. Here are the things that put us in a free place. When someone's humble and honest. The world says this is a bad thing. In the kingdom of God, this is extremely valuable. It's a necessity. Humble and honest, surrendered and willing, sensitive and understanding, believing and trusting, forgiving and approachable, patient and peace-loving. These are the values of the kingdom. These are what you want to cultivate in yourself. These are what you want to help a spouse or friend cultivate. These are what you want to build into your children. And these are what you want to listen for. Are they struggling with some of these unhealthy matters of the heart? Or are they struggling with some of these, or are they walking in some of these freedom areas? So if I'm talking with someone and I sense, wow, there's a lot of a lot of anger and bitterness here, then I know, all right, something's happened along the way. Something has caused this. And then what would I know as a believer would be my goal next? If someone's got some anger and bitterness in their life, and I know something's happened, what should be my goal? What would you say?
You can ask them how you can pray for them.
Yes? What do I want them to experience? Yeah. What do I want them to know?
God's
Jesus.
unconditional love.
Yeah. I want to help them get free from that. I want to help them get to a place of peace. That should be my goal. If I see that my child is walking in some anger and bitterness, then what should click on right away is, I need to help them with this. I don't need to lash out back at them like, well, I don't know who you think you are, but that's not helping a situation. If I sense someone is angry and bitter, then my goal as a believer should be to help them get free from that. This is me speaking heart language all of a sudden to them. This is me reading and assessing level of heart and trying to meet them there. If I sense someone is walking in insecurity and withdrawal, what do I want to help them do?
Feel secure.
Yeah. I want to help them get to a place of confidence. I want to help them get to a place where they know who they are in Christ. I don't want to poke at them at that moment. I don't want to insult them. I don't want to put them down even more. I don't want to make fun of them. I don't want to, pull out all of their fears or point out all of their weaknesses or everything that they've done to fail. That's not my goal. That would be horrible. That's not what I should be called to do. I'm called to meet someone in their insecurities and fears and build them up in that. This is level of heart all of a sudden. This changes the way you parent, changes the way you do marriage, changes the way you do life with people around you. They also know that motives, thoughts, feelings, words, and actions all come from the heart. Everything comes from the heart. The way a person thinks comes from their heart. The way a person's feeling comes from their heart. The motives that a person has, the activities they involve in, all come from their heart. That's why this is so important. Number 4, influential leaders learn to listen to the hearts of people, what they need, fear, and long for. This is what I make it my goal to do. I'm trying to listen all the time, a lot more than I talk. And I talk a lot. But my goal, what I've training myself to do with Heather, my kids, and the people here, people I meet out in the community, is to listen. What does this person really need? What do they long for? And even what are their fears? If I can sense some of that in a conversation, it can help me know how to really give them hope and life. Not destroy them, not, use that moment so I can capitalize on it and take them down or whatever. No, so I can use that moment to speak love to them, have compassion for them. This is listening at a different level, though. This is listening past the conversation. This is listening. What does this person need? What's going on in their life? I wonder what they're really longing for right now. I wonder if there's any fears that they're working on, processing through. Number 5, influential leaders give others what their heart needs in spite of their current attitudes and actions. If you want to make a difference in someone's life, then you have to be willing and ready to give them what they need in spite of what's going on in the moment. They may be crying, they may be angry, they may be lashing out, they may be insulting you, they may be uninterested. But if you want to influence somebody, then you have to give them what their heart needs, even though they may not be ready to receive it. Jesus knew what the disciples needed in their heart. He even knew what the Pharisees needed in their hearts too. And he kept giving it even though they weren't receiving it yet. You just keep giving it, even though they may not be ready, even though they may be reacting. You just keep doing it. You don't react to them because of the way they reacted to you. You give what you need to give to them because what God's given to you. And then, number 6, influential leaders build relationships of trust that allow people to open their hearts to them. They build relationships of trust. The people that you're going to have the greatest influence into are going to be the people that trust you the most. And if people in your life can't trust you because you are untrustworthy, 1, harsh, cruel, mean, condescending, not available, then you are not going to have anybody who trusts you if that's what you do. No one's going to look at you and say, oh, I really want to open my heart up to them. I can't wait to be, put down and insulted and, had all my weaknesses pointed out. No one likes that. You don't influence anybody that way. So you have to get to the place where you develop a relationship of trust, where what is the link between you and the other person is that they trust you. You know that they can be vulnerable with you and you're not going to expose them, mock them, or condemn them. This is where real influence kicks in. So let me close here with a story, and then we'll make some application here on a personal level. So we get down to the close of Jesus' time here on earth. He's about to go to the cross. It's the moment that the Father has shown him what's ahead. He knows what he's about to go through. All of these men that he has just spent 3.5 years with are about to deny that they even know him. That'd be tough. You pour your time and energy into people, and they're about to just turn on you. Everything that you've hoped for, longed for, they're about to walk out on. And in this moment, Jesus does something. Let's read the story. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew, this is important, when Jesus knew that his hour had come and that he should depart from this world to the Father, when he knew what was about to happen, he knew it. He knew what was coming. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Knowing they were going to turn against him, knowing they were going to deny him, knowing they were going to fail him, he loved them all the way to the end. He didn't say, psh, those guys, they're losers. Why would I want to do anything else for them? They're only going to spit in my face. He didn't do that. He loved them to the end. Verse 2, and supper being ended, the devil having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him,
Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he had come from God, was going to God, rose up from the supper, laid aside his garments, took a towel, and girded himself. Man, every sentence here is powerful. Knowing what was about to happen, and Judas already being influenced by the devil, knowing what was about to happen, it says that Jesus knew something else. It says he knew that the Father had given all things into his hands, that he had come from God and was going to God. That's pretty important. When you're in that moment where you know people haven't been listening to you and they're not going to listen to you, when you wonder if you're having any influence and then they want to reject you, he says, here's what you do. You know that you came from God and you know that you're going to God. You know what he's done in you and you know where he's got you going. Now, out of what's in you, you can influence. Jesus is about to make the biggest impact right here in these men's lives. And it will come knowing that it's going to be painful. Let's go on. Verse 5. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. You and I have a hard time comprehending what this really means right here because this is not a social practice for us. People come over to your house, you don't get a basin of water out and ask them to take their socks and shoes off and go wash their feet. It's just not what we do. But in that culture, that's what they did. If you went into someone's house, it was a way of not just being nice to them, but it was a way of giving them some air conditioning, basically, because you're washing their feet. It was hot, it was dry, there'd been a long day, their feet were cracked, and they didn't have nice shoes like we do. They didn't have Nikes and Reeboks, all those kind of things. They didn't have nice dress shoes with inserts in them that, that keep their feet all soft and moist. They had dry sandals. And so in this moment, you go into someone's house, and what they provided for you was washing your feet. But that was relegated to the servant. The lowest did this. It wasn't the host's role, it was the servant's role. You would never go into someone's house and expect the people who invited you to be the ones doing that. It was a servant who did that. It was the lowest in the house. And so they get together, it's Jesus and the disciples, it's the last night, and it's the moment where, all right, well, who's the lowest here? Who's going to do the foot washing? One of you disciples is going to be the lowest. No one moves. No one gets up. I kind of wonder if Jesus was like, hello? It doesn't say he did that, but it's that moment where somebody would customarily do this. Someone would get up. Who's it going to be? No one moves. So Jesus gets up. The host, the leader, unexpected. He does it. He gets up, takes the towel, takes the basin of water, and he starts washing not just one, but all of the disciples' feet. Uncharacteristic. This would not have socially been the custom, but Jesus does it. So there's a reaction. Verse 6. Then he came to Simon Peter, and Peter says to him, "Lord, are you washing my feet?" And Jesus answered him, said, "What I am doing, you do not understand now." You don't get it now, but you will know after this. You see the power of influence? He was doing it then, even though they wouldn't understand it in the moment. You're going to love some people in your life right now. They're going to be hard to love, and you're going to think, they don't get it. And you'll be exactly right. They won't get it. But that doesn't mean you don't do it. You keep loving them when they don't get it. Verse 8, Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." And Jesus said, "If I don't wash your feet, you have no part with me." You're going to have to let this happen, Peter. Verse 9, Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Typical Peter overdoing it. Verse 10, Jesus said to him, "He who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not all of you." For he knew who would betray him. Therefore he said, "You are not all clean." Judas is in the group. Verse 12, so when he had washed their feet, taken his garments, and sat down again, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am.
If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. Jesus knew how to hear heart. And in a moment when he knew they were going to react, rebel, deny, do everything he didn't want them to do, he kept on doing it because he knew what their heart needed. He knew they needed to be shown love. He knew they had never experienced the kind of love that he had. And so he did something completely uncharacteristic. He did something that was not about him. He was able to humble himself and do what they needed to have done for them. You see it? So let me ask you this as we wrap up here. What do you need to improve? What do you need to do to improve your ability to hear the hearts of others? So based on all of this, what does it spark in your mind and your heart to say, all right, here's what I need to do if I'm going to be able to hear the hearts of others? What is it for you?